Hello everyone. Let's talk about CI/CD, but a little bit differently than just usually we do. So we will not talk about the tools, pipelines, integrations, at least not about the specific tools, pipelines, and integrations, how to use them, how to configure them, etc. We will do something different. So let's get started. My name is Piwosz. I am a DevOps Institute ambassador, AWS community builder, and also CD Foundation ambassador. I work as lead system engineer at EPAM Systems. So, on the beginning, let's think about how we usually create our CI/CD, right? And this is, I would say, most common approach, and I found it everywhere during the discussions after talking about with people about CI/CD itself. So we have some code. We know what kind of environments we want to deploy to, and we know some specific tool, right? Jenkins, Azure DevOps, TeamCity, whatever, right? And those three elements together creates for us the pipeline, right? We use this tool to provide or to deliver this code to these environments, and that's it, right? And we consider mainly the environments, as the previous slide showed. We consider the tools, we consider the tests sometimes, if we are advanced enough. Those of us who are seniors considers even releases, how we do the releases. If you are even above this level of senior, you will think about branching and some kind of Jedi's during inside the team will think about the reverts, because this is also the part of the CI/CD. Of course, I'm kidding a little bit, but not that much. All right. So let's think about this from the different perspective, because what can go wrong with this specific way of doing things? Is there anything what should be done a little bit differently? So today we will look on CI/CD from different perspective, from the helicopter view. We will go back in space, and we will look on it from a completely different point of view. So we will not look on the topic from the engineer perspective, but from the organization. Not from the pipeline perspective, pipeline itself, how it is designed or implemented. We'll look on the process, right? And in order to start it properly, we need to, as a first point, we need to take organization. Why is that? Because a couple of things, really. And this is very important. Something what we very often, maybe not forget, but we don't see it. We don't have it in our minds when we do our daily work. So why organization? Because of a couple of elements, and one of the most important is Conway's law. What is Conway's law? In simple terms, to explain it in simple terms, I will say that the design of the system, so what we developed and how we develop it, is a mirror of the communication structure inside the organization. What it means? It means that if two components in our application have to be very close together, have to very closely and very intensively communicate with each other, and those teams who are responsible for those components will not talk together, it will not work. Okay? Those teams need to be also in that kind of communication pattern like a system is, right? And this Conway's law leads us to some great book and some great concept called team topologies, and this is based on the book of two guys, Mr. Skelton and Pai, and they created an approach where we can see all those elements, how they work together, right? And we see here, for example, platform team and the platform engineering right now is a hype, but this hype is because some kind of misunderstanding what the platform team really is, right? We will not go into details here because we have only 25 minutes left. And so let's go further. So what we need to consider when we design, when we talked about CI/CD, the first element we already discussed in quickly, shortly, but we discussed organization. What else? For example, branching strategy, right? Delivery strategy, artifact management, SDLC, quality gates, capabilities, constraints, responsibilities, releases, and we are in the middle of the list at this point. Rollbacks, KPIs. Yes, I know all of us love KPIs. DevOps as a practice, monitoring and measurements. Those two things are different. Monitoring is not equal measurements, or measurements are not part of the monitoring. We will go into details a little bit later. What kind of environments we have. Value streams, also more and more popular element, but honestly speaking, as DevOps is emerged somehow from Lean, the value streams should be in our blood all the time, because value stream is one of the important part of Lean. What tools we use, and last but not least, the security. And I always have the fun to talk about security on the end, because yeah, why not, right? Something needs to stay in our heads, so most often it is the last topic, last element. Right, so let's go through the details, right? So we have environments, and here we can say it's easy, right? We have dev, we have QA, we have pre-prod, release candidate, production, right? What's the problem is here? What is the problem? And the problem is very easy to touch, because we have many environments. This number can change. We need to understand what is the ownership of each environment, what is the structure of each environment, what kind of access we have to each environment, because it may happen that you have the full control on dev environment and QA environment, but no control at all on production, right? Production is deployed and monitored only by automated structures like CI/CD, like infrastructure as code, like monitoring platforms, etc., etc. So those elements are important to understand. And also, as we know how many environments we have, we know what is the transition between them, we are able to design our test strategy through the chain, right, where specific tests will be executed. Next part, branching strategy. This is like a most common, most understand element, definitely more than just the environments. And the branching strategy means generally what we do with the code in our version control system, right? So this is where this CI/CD somehow starts, right? This is the first point where the code from different developers meet together. And we have a couple of strategies, right? We have trunk, we have git flow, we have stories, tasks, kind of strategy. We can have even environments, right? If you are not familiar with this approach, please think about git flow and multiply it by number of your environments. And yes, it goes crazy, right? What is the code structure? What is the repository design? How we provide access to the code there. So, for example, who is and how we design pull requests, how we design the communication about pull requests, how we provide approvers to those pull requests. Do we have protected branches? How we do escalations? Because yes, again, we all love escalations, but let's be honest with each other, right? Escalations path is needed, because if something happen at it, and it will happen in some point, we need to know what to do and who to notify, right? What kind of integrations we have? Do we use feature toggles or not? And how we design those feature toggles? Do we do tests? And here I'm not thinking about unit testing like this, but more like TDD, BDD approach, etc., because this also will somehow influence how we code. And why this is important? Because, for example, if we have very small code, do we want to use Git flow? Maybe not, right? If we use a specific tool for our deployments, like for example AWS Code Deploy, probably we would like to go with specific branching strategy, right? And those are interconnected somehow. So branching strategy, this is the first or the one side of the stick. The opposite side of the stick is the delivery strategy, right? And here we need to talk about the not only delivery itself, but also the CI, right? What is the trigger? What is the build process? What kind of steps we have inside? What are the responsibilities of team members? What is the communication pattern? Do we use continuous delivery on continuous or continuous deployment? Small change, but really big difference. Small change in the wording, at least, because continuous delivery means that we have some stop inside the process when some manual action can be taken. Continuous deployment means that there is no manual action, no stop. You commit the code, you have it on production, right? So this also influence other choices. What kind of testing strategies we have? Do we have manual testing? If we have manual testing, we will never have continuous deployment, right? Unit test, integration, end-to-end, smoke, acceptance, performance. There is a lot of different tests, right? What are the environments when we need to deploy our code, right? What we do between stages? What will happen between, for example, QA and release candidate and production, right? This is also important. What kind of deployment strategies we have? Blue-green, blue-violet. Probably you could hear blue / something else, some other color. For me, it is violet. For me, it doesn't make any difference because I have tendency to be colorblind, so who cares? AB, a deployment strategy, canary, rolling, even recreate, right? And now think about if one team, we have these two components which are talking with each other very closely, and one team deploys using canary and second deploys using recreate, right? What can happen? Because something may happen. So how you will deal with that? All right. In between somewhere we have artifact management, and here it's important what kind of tools we use, how we create the naming conversion, how we version our naming conversion, how we version our artifacts, how we inform others about artifacts, what is the access management to those artifact storages, what is the integration. And here I was thinking a lot about that, and I found that the best description for the integration in terms of artifacts management system is to say that it can be loosely integrated, Like for example, you have code pipeline, code deployment, code deploy, and you keep your storage, your artifacts in the S3 storage, right? This is not part of the code pipeline service itself. Or we can have highly integrated, like for example, we in Azure DevOps, where you have of the part of the tool itself is this artifact management system. And this may be also important, because if you have this loosely integrated, probably there is a lot more actions needed. Let's say this as actions, right? Security, access, etc., etc., etc. Right? SDLC. In other words, do you use agile, waterfall, right? What is the approach, right? And is this approach valid for your CI/CD lifecycle? Is the CI/CD itself treated as a internal or external product, platform, part, right? So this is also important to know. Quality gates. This is quite simple, right? So what kind of type of quality gates we have? If we have manual quality gates, we do not have continuous deployment. I said that already. How we notify, how we test stuff in gates, what kind of metrics we provide from those tests, what kind of delays we can allow, right? Because some tests which are in quality gates can be quite long, right? And time consuming and even resource consuming. And if we have the, let's say, the prospect to deliver every 5 minutes, we cannot allow to have 4 hours long tests. Simple like that. So quality gates, understand the quality gates is also important. What kind of capabilities we have? And here we talk about the team composition, about the team maturity, team knowledge. It means experience, knowing of tools, etc., etc. Collaboration between the teams and between the people inside the team. The topology of the organization, right? We talk about this in terms of organization. People constraints. What kind of tooling we have? So those are elements which we need to consider before we even go to the next slide, which is constraints. Because honestly, all of those elements can be also your constraint. So your business type can be constrained. Probably you will have different approach to CI/CD when you own the company who presents the pictures of the cats in the internet. Then you have, for example, I don't know, space mission company, right? And you are responsible for some kind of space mission, when you cannot just use exactly the same tooling and the same approach. Or different constraints. For example, you need to keep your artifacts, you need to keep your backward compatibility for 20 years. Because why not, right? Or your delivery process is quite heavy. For example, you need to deliver new software to all IoT devices in cars. And you have like millions of cars around the world. Right? Your CI/CD probably will look a little bit differently than just new part of the code in your PHP script for your site for pictures of cat. Right? What is the time constraint? This is also important, right? What is the security constraint, tooling constraint, technical constraints, right? For security, for example, if you are not allowed to use cloud-based environments, you will not go with Travis, Circle CI, etc., 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 because you cannot. Simple, right? What are the responsibilities? And here we talk about people, we talk about processes, we talk about contact points, escalations, path, policies, times, procedures, etc., etc., etc. Everything what prepares us to act quickly and effectively. Let's say this way. Releases. So release, please have this in mind. release doesn't mean deploy, right? Because you can have the SDLC constructed in that way that you, for example, have some kind of committee who accept or reject the changes, right? And if you have something like that in your SDLC, it will mean that you will never have continuous deployment. Simple, right? Rollbacks. And this is interesting part, because rollbacks, generally we understand like we have the code in version X, we have the code in version X plus 1, we deploy the version X plus 1, and something happened, we just come back to version X, right? And yes, this is correct. This is something what we called rollback back. But we also have rollback forwards. Ha, that's interesting, right? And that sounds a little bit scary. Roll back forward. But okay. And now, if you have two microservices, and one is treated with rollback back, and second with rollback forward, right? You see my point here? But this is not only about this. This is about RTOs, RPOs, so restore time objective, restore point objectives. Are we allowed to have any data loss? Do we need to have zero downtime, even for rollbacks? What kind of granularity we have, right? Do we roll back everything, or do we roll back just the one service or part of the service? What we do with databases? Those questions we need to know, and those questions should be answered on the organization level, really. KPIs, and here this topic is quite, again, beloved by us. Generally, it means about it is about the service level agreement, service level objectives, service level indicators, right? So if we if our process allows us to restore, for example, something, or do some action in 4 hours, and there is no way to have this shorter, or we need to use this 4 hours for SLA, or we need to change our approach to fulfill shorter SLA, right? Simple like that. DevOps, and here we talk about composition of the DevOps part, let's say. So do we use this, what I hate really, DevOps engineer? So do we have DevOps engineer in the team? Do we have like a separate DevOps team outside the single teams? Maybe there is no DevOps at all as our role. What should be done, but anyway, what we do with automation, right? What we do with cooperation, feedbacks, how we treat feedback loops, and how we work with them, right? What kind of measurements in terms of DevOps we have. Monitoring, and this is quite simple. How we monitor our pipelines, how we monitor the effectiveness of our pipelines, how we monitor stability of our pipelines. So here we talk about metrics, tools, responsibilities as well. What kind of events, actions, alerts, and how we treat logs and metrics, right? And this part is technical, when measurements are operational, okay? And here we talk about something what is called, for example, DORA, right? So this is a quite nice set of metrics created to measure DevOps, and DORA has 4 metrics, 4 base metrics, which we can set up into 2 categories. One is throughput, and here we have deployment frequency and lead cycle time. And the second is stability, when we have where we have time to recover and change failure rate. Those are taken from the monitoring stuff, partially at least, but are treated a little bit differently. And the value stream. So generally, if you look on CI/CD in the most of the organizations, and you will map your process, the big part of this process will take will be taken by CI/CD. What means really that you need to look on the CI/CD as a very, very integrated part of your whole chain, of your value stream, right? So looking for all wasters, looking for all bottlenecks, problems, etc., etc. Here will help you also to improve the value stream itself. All right, tools. It's quite simple, right? So what kind of tools we use? But not only that. For example, if you have 3 teams, and those 3 teams are using completely different tools, and what even worse, those 3 teams pay the licenses for those 3 tools. Probably a lot of money is wasted. First of all, you have the kind of disintegrated common knowledge, because all teams are using something else. And also you pay for 3 different licenses where you can pay only for one, potentially, right? And this brings us back to Conway's law, to organization, to setup of everything around, communication, etc., right? Security, finally. I published, not that recently, a couple of weeks ago, an update to my framework, this framework which I'm talking about right now. And there is a lot about the security. It becomes the biggest branch in this framework. But security is really important, right? And we have a couple of aspects here. And this is the aspect of the security of the tool itself, of course, and this is the most obvious for us. But there is something else. Inside the chain, we are somehow forced, at least part of some of us which are working for US government, for example, we are forced to generate SBOMs, right? So software bill of materials. And as this is already a law in US, this will be spread, right? This will be spread, and more and more clients will expect to generate this kind of document into the pipeline, inside the pipeline. What else? How we deal with the pipeline to secure any kind of injection, any kind of issue during the pipeline execution, right? How we deal with the all required dependencies. How many of you are checking your dependencies in terms of security and dependencies of those dependencies? And you know what I mean, right? Especially when we talk about Python, when we talk about Node.js or JavaScript itself in the broader perspective, there is tons of dependent libraries which you need to download. How often you check them, right? If they are secure or not. And all of this provides us into kind of mind map. And we can use this mind map to talk about the CI/CD on the organization level, right? And to see all elements which are needed to be taken into consideration, needed to be taken into the focus, needed to be improved, etc., 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 right? And why I say that this is kind of architecture of the CI/CD? Because it is very simple. As we have on this side all of those elements we discussed very shortly, but we have also all of the quality attributes of the architecture, right? All those ETs, right? Capacity, scalability, interoperability, usability, security, etc., 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 right? So we can architect the vision from different perspectives, right? So the CI/CD itself can look completely differently from different point of views. And why we would like to use this approach. And believe me, I used this a couple of times in real environment, in real action, let's say, and it works. It works perfectly fine. So why this approach? Because we can architect the vision, right? We can put all those points together in some relation to other points, to align the projects, to align the stakeholders and business together, to build a common understanding what is possible and what is not possible, right? And to unify the tech stack, knowledge, and to unify the people. And please remember, this is not about ordering all teams to use Jenkins. No, right? It is about to think how we can improve the collaboration in terms of tooling as well, right? And I tend to call it as kind of a Rosetta Stone of CI/CD, and I see that they have typo here, because this is a translation point. This is translation point for business. This is translation point for the stakeholders, for engineers, for architects, and also for the security. And you can bring all of people in one room and talk with them at the same time, right? And this is also what I've done. And this is very, very valuable here, to have the broad understanding on, let's call it, enough level for all those parties which are participating in your organization success. Because on the end of the day, it's not the team or DevOps or QA or whatever, the one team who sells the product. Organization does it, right? So thank you very much. I hope it was useful for you. If you have any questions, you can reach me on my LinkedIn. And if you are interested in this framework, if I make any thinking process happening in your minds right now, you can go into www.cicd.run, and there is this framework where you can download this mind map in the most current version. So thank you very much, and enjoy rest of the day, and see you somewhere else very soon. Thank you very much.